Hey, welcome back. We're going to sort of pick up where we left off, although I didn't save it between yesterday and today, so we're going to have to kill Albania again, and it's going to be tragic, but it's only going to take a second. So we create a general with our military power, and this one is actually quite good. He's got 4 shocks. That makes him an amazingly good general. Unfortunately, they've got a 5-shock general, so whatever. We're going to mothball the big fleet because we only need it to fight other fleets, and there currently aren't any fleets we need to fight. And we're going to protect trade in our capital with our trade ships. We're going to come over here with this army, and you know what? We should probably put our general in charge of the guys that are not crossing a river. Remember, these guys, if you mouse over it, are not crossing a river into the mountains, whereas these guys are crossing a river into the mountains. So we're going to go in with these guys first. We're going to wait 2 days. 1, 2, and then we're going to have these guys join them. And then these guys will leave while those guys stay. I think that's all we did. Oh yeah, we had to put a missionary over here. That's cool. And we needed to recruit 3 advisors, the cheapest ones we can find. Spy offense is useless. Reinforced speed is useless. National tax modifier is useless. So none of those advisors are any good, but they all give us +1/+1/+1 monarch points, and that's super important because monarch points are how you both tech up and gain idea groups, as well as keeping your stability down, and your war exhaustion down, and your inflation down, and preventing yourself from exploding and dying. Remember, we have an awesome king, 556. Sweet! Really good king. Despotic monarchy that helps us to make unjustified claims and also reduces our revolt risk by 1, which we will never change because, you know, the difference between government types isn't worth the cost of changing government types. Our current capital is Idrine. That will change eventually when we get Constantinople. Remember, Constantinople is a trade estuary. Remember, important center of trade. It has these 2 blue things, whereas Idrine does not have those 2 blue things. That means that the trade power provided from this single province is 60, whereas the trade power of this single province is 1.8. So it's ridiculously important to get Constantinople. So we're going to do that first thing as soon as we're done beating up Albania. We have, of course, 0 power projection because we have no rivals. Remember, rivals are under the diplomacy tab right here. This is where you would set your rivals. Lithuania has us as a rival, Aragon has us as a rival, Venice has us as a rival, and the Mamluks have us as a rival. And it's not important that you know where those countries are or who those countries are just yet. It's only important that you know that they hate you. That's good. The ledger can tell you how strong those people are if you were so inclined. You just click L like this, L, or you can click down here on the actual ledger, and then you click military, armies, and sort by force limit. So this is the most powerful, theoretically, country. I mean, this doesn't take into account the fact that Ming is so backwards technologically that their troops will all die to like one of your troops. But in general, if you sort by force limits, the people on the top are going to be the people you care about. So this is us right here. We have 27 force limits, whereas the Timurids have 51. They are right here. The Timurids are a horde. If you right-click on them, it says that they're the same military tech as you, but right here it says their technology group is the nomad group. That means they're a horde. That means they get horde units. Now, horde units, swarm cavalry, are better than all the other units in the game for the first, 60 years or something. So not only do they have almost double our force limit because they're this huge country over here and we're just this little country over here, but they have better units than us, and they get free reinforcements. That's one of the things you just need to know about hordes is their reinforcements are all free. So if you fight a war against them, after the first battle you're going to have to pay a whole bunch of money to replace the troops you lost, and they're not. They're just going to get those troops back for free. So it's scary, but luckily we are Sunni. Where's the little religion icon? Right there, the little green thing. And they are Sunni, the little green thing, which means that they like us. So it will be quite easy for us to ally them once our war is over. Right? So we're just going to want to create or royal marry them to let them know that we're interested in an extremely long-term relationship. Notice they're willing to royal marry us because they have a friendly attitude to us. See, it says +40 from a friendly attitude, +5 because we're both Sunni, and +5 because I have a good reputation. And you remember, my reputation is entirely coming from my legitimacy. So my king is considered to be a legitimate king, which gives me +1 diplomatic reputation. And that +1 diplomatic reputation gives everyone in the world +5 to their odds of wanting to be royal married to me. Okay, so the only negatives are that they're kind of far away from us and they don't really like us very much. If we improved relations with them under this action, improve relations, then this number would get higher and higher, up to plus 100 from improving relations. And then that little -3 would turn into a plus, I don't know, 50 or 100 or whatever. I guess every 5 points of relations is one point towards wanting to be my friend. So 100 points would be 20, plus 20. So I could get plus 20 by improving relations with them fully. But they're going to take it right now just because of that friendly attitude. And that's important because attitudes change over time, right? So all the nations look at the strength of the nations around them and the strength of the alliances of the nations around them and decide if someone's about as powerful as them or more powerful or less powerful. And then they decide whether or not they want to kill that person because they're so much less powerful and they have rich provinces that they want to kill them. Or if they're afraid that that person might attack them, like if they're the same culture and religion, and yet they have a negative attitude toward me, I might be afraid that you're going to attack me, and that would make me hostile towards you. So lots of different things affect relationships, but in the very beginning of the game, I am friendly toward the Timurids, and I should take advantage of that and secure our long-term relationship right on turn 1 by royal marrying them. Crimea and I are also little green heart friendly, so I could easily ally them. Although Crimea is they're a horde just like the Timurids, but as you can see, they're way smaller than the Timurids. This is another giant nation right on my border, and they similarly are very friendly towards me. So I'm going to royal marry them as well. Okay, so I'm royal married with the 2 largest hordes in the area. I can't ally them yet because we're at war, and no one's going to ally you while you're here at war. But if you do the royal marriage now, you marry your daughter to their son or whatever, then they're going to stay friendly. Whereas if you just ignored them, then they might reconsider and be like, well, he's ignoring me, maybe I shouldn't be friendly towards him. People who are not friendly towards me, like the Ottomans and the Mamluks, have a historical rivalry, so they start the game as rivals. So this little dagger is the opposite of that green heart. And it means their relations towards me are really, really heavily hampered. Now, it is possible to take someone who's rivaled you and convince them that you will be a good and loyal friend, but it would take like 50 or 60 years. Like, it's not something you can do in the short term, and it's not something you should even try to do at all. Like, honestly, it's not worth the effort. And 50 years from now, you're better off having fought 50 years of beneficial wars with that person than... Simon, buddy, I'm recording, so I don't need to know about Minecraft just yet. You can tell me after, okay? Simon's playing some Minecraft, yo. Anyway, we have used our diplomats. Now, I set up the message settings. If you hit escape and you click message settings right there, and you search for diplomat, and then all, instead of dynasty. This one, when a diplomat returns home. So you could search for diplomat returns, I guess. That'd make it easier. And I set this to the first option, which is pause the game and pop up a message when that happens. So what that means is if I set the game to 5x speed by hitting the plus sign on my keyboard or by clicking this plus sign up here, I moved the speed from 1 to 5. And then I unpause it and just wait. Then the game's going to run and run and run and run until right now, when this diplomat returns home, it's going to instantly pause when that diplomat gets home. And that's the way I like to usually play the game, is just on max speed with it pausing as soon as my diplomats get home. And then I send my diplomats off to do something, and they come home in 15 days. So I just kind of skip over that 15-day period, so it's kind of cool. And that message setting is important for being able to do that if that's the way you want to play. I would obviously recommend, if you're brand new to the game, playing on 3x speed or 2x speed or whatever until you get used to it. But once you get used to the game, you'll realize that the important things, like I need to start a battle now, I need to start a war now, someone declared war on me, somebody, you know, my diplomat has returned home and I need to send them to a new place, or like I can now build more troops than I was able to build before. Those are all tied to specific messages, and you can set the game to pause on those messages, so you don't really need to pay attention to anything until one of those messages pops up. So it's totally cool to play on 5x speed eventually. Okay, so these boats are sleeping, these dudes are protecting trade, and I have successfully beaten up the Ottomans. So remember, I have 2 armies of 13,000 men. I sent them both to Albania, with the guy not crossing a river going in first. And then I shift right clicked back on Epirus with one of those groups, so that he would automatically run away after he'd stepped on that province. So shift clicking is just queuing up an action, the same way you can do in like other video games. You just hold shift and tell him what he wants to do, and he'll do those things one after the other. If you want to cancel it all, you just right click on the province where he's already standing. So what I want to do now is take everybody except for enough people to siege down the province out of this province, because I don't need my whole army standing there taking attrition. Now you can see this green 5 right here means that I'm taking 5% attrition by while I siege up this province. And I would actually be taking a lot more than 5% attrition. I would be taking 9% attrition because I have 26 units in a province that only supports 17.8. But the maximum attrition in Albania, which you can see by clicking Show Province and going over here, right here, it says max attrition 5. It's, you know, max attrition is 5, so I'm never going to take more than 5% attrition. But if you think about it, 5% attrition per month is insane. Of 25,000 troops in the province, 5% of those guys are going to die every month. It's only going to take a very small number of months before I've lost so many troops that it's just crazy ridiculous. Luckily, the supply limit of this province is 17, so I'm only going to take attrition until I reach 17,000 troops, and then the remaining 17,000 troops will be fine. They won't be taking very much attrition anymore. There's a minimum attrition of 1% whenever you're sieging a province, or whenever you enter an enemy province at all. So, bare minimum, you're going to lose 1% of your army, which is a lot. You know, I think that's 250 men every month or something. So you want to keep as few men standing in enemy territory as possible. So they actually have some hotkeys that do this. For example, S will split your army in half. So that's, now we have two armies of about 13,000, right? G will group your armies together. So even if you had, like, say you had this many armies, you could group them all together by hitting G once. It all form back into a group. And then D, for detached siege, will split off exactly 1,000 more troops than you need to siege the province. Actually, maybe that's not true. Yeah, no, it'll split off exactly as many troops as you need to siege the province, plus 1 cannon if you have cannons. But in the early game, you don't have cannons, so it's just going to split off 2 infantry. So you can see the garrison size of this province is 2,000, so we need 2,000 infantry to siege it up. So when I hit D, it creates an army of 2,000 and then leaves the rest of the guys selected so I can do something else with them. So I'm going to take these other guys. It looks like I didn't reassign my general to that fight, so I fought that without a general. That's pretty funny. I lost 794 men in that battle. It wasn't really that big of a deal. Ooh, actually I can click here and find out, right? He did... I lost 842 men. He lost all 3,000 because I totally stack wiped him. Notice how they show us the artwork, like I totally needed to see the artwork. That's important, right? No, it's not. By default, this screen will pop up every time you finish a battle. I turned it off in message settings. Whenever something pops up, you can decide whether you want to see it next time it happens by clicking this, right? You click this little message button in the bottom, and then you can say, do you want to show this on the map or not? Do you want to display this in the log or not? Do you want to open a pop-up window? Do you want to pop up and pause? Do you want it to show up as an icon? So basically I just want to do this as display in the log and show me an icon so that it goes over here. You remember, and that's how I brought this up, was it went over here and I clicked it to see what happened. So I send almost everything over to this this log. Accepted military alliance with Hungary. Like, these things would normally be pop-ups, and I don't really care about most of them, so I just set them to show up in the log. And then I can go read them if I want to. But I usually don't want to. So message settings are very, you know, cool to make the game less crazy, less ridiculous. So one of my diplomats came home, which is why the game automatically paused, so we got to figure out what to do with him next. Now, when you send a diplomat somewhere, like we just sent a diplomat to the Timurids, you can't send another one for like 14 days or some amount of time, maybe a month. So we can't actually send a diplomat back over to the Timurids to do anything for 14 more days. So we're just going to let this guy sit idle and do nothing, because we really want to pay attention to Karakuyunlu and the Timurids for now. They're two really nice allies that we could secure. Now remember, everyone has 4 ally slots. So we used a slot. As soon as we royal married those guys, we're permanently tying ourselves to them, which means that uses one of our 4 relation slots. So currently we're using 2 out of our 4 slots to royal marriage these two nations. I have 2 more slots that I could use for something. I could, for example, you know, I could tie myself to France by saying, "Hey France, would you give me military access or something?" Or I could proclaim a guarantee. Like, even if they don't like you at all, you can still permanently use up a not permanently. You can use up a relations slot by guaranteeing someone. So alliance, guarantee, military access, fleet basing rights, which just means I can send my ships there. I think those are the only ways to tie yourself to somebody. Royal marriage, obviously. So you got to be careful about who you tie yourself to. For now, I'm just going to stick with these 2. I'll probably use the last 2 relationship slots to build a vassal. I might like vassalize Serbia and then let them gobble up all of Bosnia and Wallachia and then feed them Vidin, and then turn them into a march so that they can be on my western border with a bunch of troops, eastern troops even. They have better troops than me. So that might be fun. But in the short term, we were talking about what monarch points are used for. And we had clicked, we were going through these tabs one at a time, and we were saying, this is your government tab. You mostly use it to pick your advisors and set a national focus to just check on how many monarch points of each type you're getting each year. Because if you have a 0 administrative king and you need to get to the next idea group, you might consider not improving your stability at all and just fighting rebels, fighting more rebels than normal, and not converting any provinces, and, like, you know, suffering the consequence of not improving stability. But in doing so, you would save the administrative points you're going to need because you have a 0 administrative king to get the next idea group unlocked. Also, you might not want to go to war for new territory if you have a 0 admin king, because you won't be able to core it. You won't have enough administrative points to core it. And whenever you want to add territory to your nation, you get the choice of whether to core it administratively by taking the provinces and then, you know, reforming the bureaucracy and adding it to your kingdom administratively, or diplomatically, where you vassalize the conquered you know, the conquered nation and then annex them diplomatically. So if you had like a 0-6 king, like 0 admin and 6 diplo, you'd want to vassalize everyone until he died. And then if your next king was 6-0, you might not want to vassalize anyone until he died. So the way that you play the game is different depending on which, you know, how much of each monarch points you're going to get. Also, especially if you had a 0 military king, you definitely want to set your national focus to military power and not spend any military power on generals and not spend any military power on harsh treatment or anything. Just save all your military power to tech up, not get a military idea, stuff like that. Because if you have a 0 admin king, you can fall behind on military tech and just lose every battle, and that's super frustrating. Okay. So, the next tab is the diplomacy. You mostly use this to talk to other people, but if you click on your own diplomacy tab, you can see how many relationships you have. And this is important because sometimes you ask for military access to walk through Moldavia, and then you forget that you asked for that. And then you mouse over your diplomatic power and you see, hey, I have 5 out of 4 diplomatic relations. Why is that? And then you go into this tab, you click View My Own Nation, and you mouse over here, and it says, oh, I'm getting military access from Moldavia. Okay, that makes sense. And then you just cancel that. So knowing where to find this in order to be able to tell who you have diplomatic ties to is pretty important. Also, I think that's kind of all that this tab. It's also used for setting rivals and seeing who's rivaled you and checking truce timers and stuff, but I don't usually use it for checking truce timers. The economy tab, primarily tax, production, trade is where your income comes from, and advisors, military, and fleet are where your expenses go to. So if you're finding yourself losing a bunch of money every month, fire all your advisors first, and then defund your military second, and if you're still not making any money, you might have to disband some troops and stuff like that. So that's basically what the economy tab is used for. There's a bunch of other details that we already went over, but that's basically what you want to pay attention to. Trade you can mostly ignore. Just make sure you're collecting from trade in your capital and whatever trade node you have the second most amount of power in, and you're protecting trade in your capital with your fleet if it's a non-inland trade node. Technology, simple. Westernization is something worth mentioning. In order to westernize, you need to have a border with a Western nation. Remember, I am an Ottoman nation. If you mouse over this, it says, I am the Ottomans, right? And the Mamluks are a Muslim nation. And these guys on the eastern part of Europe are Eastern nations, even though they're actually not very far east compared to the rest of the world. Hungary even is an Eastern nation. But then when you get over here into the center of Europe, then this is a Western nation. So France is a Western nation. All of these are Western nations. So if you can share a border with a Western nation, I think right now I technically share a border with Naples, which is a Western nation, and even Corfu, I think no, Corfu's Eastern. But definitely I have Epirus here, and it's in the Gulf of Taranto, and Salentro, which is a part of Naples, which is part of Italy, is Western, and they're right on the same sea. So we share a border, so I could Westernize off of them. If you were playing someone further east, like QQ or the Timurids, right? It'd be very hard for the Timurids to Westernize. Basically, they would want to make a large fleet and load their army up into it, and then go to Italy somewhere, and without any justification, just randomly attack some Italian minor, like Urbino, like someone small who doesn't have a lot of allies, and kill them and get, like try it. Well, actually, you can't do a one province minor, but you could do like Milan. They have 3 provinces, right? Then you could take Parma, take one of their provinces, and vassalize them in the same war, and then you could core that province because you have a vassal that's adjacent to it, and then now you'd have a core right in the middle of Europe, and you could Westernize off of that. Another alternative, would be to try to push east far enough so that when Great Britain lands in India, you can have a province adjacent to them, or push your way up into northern Siberia, way the heck over here, colonize some stuff over there, and try to get borders with the Western nations by colonization. Anyway, so in order to Westernize, you have to have a border with a Western power. But what is Westernization? Basically, in the time period, the Western nations had a huge especially military technology advantage over everyone else, which is why you could take 10,000 troops from Great Britain and send them to North America and conquer 400,000 Native Americans with your 10,000 troops. It's just because when you have cannons and rifles and they have, bows and arrows and spears, you can kill them before they get in range. I mean, bows are effective, but only if you can get close enough to use them. So, Westernization is the idea that you've recognized, like the way that it happened in Japan, like certain provinces within Japan recognized how advantageous it could be to learn from these Christian people how they were winning these fights, and how they were using their cannons and their muskets, because the Western powers were totally willing to sell guns to anyone because they could make a lot of money that way. So that's the idea of Westernization. You want to organize your military the way they do. You want to use cannons the way that they use cannons. You want to use guns the way that they use guns, and all that kind of stuff. So that's why it's good. Westernization in game terms just means that you tech up faster. Like right now, for me to get the next tech is going to cost 748 military or administrative power. But if I were a Western nation, it would only cost 600. So right now it costs 25% more because I'm the Ottomans. If I Westernize, then it would no longer cost 25% more. It would cost exactly what Western powers are paying. So I can just catch up in tech more quickly if I Westernize. The process of Westernization is super easy if you're a small nation and super hard if you're a large nation. Basically, between 1 and 10 monarch points of each type will be taken from your pool of existing monarch points. Once that pool is empty, then all of your generated monarch points will go straight into that Westernization bucket. The Westernization bucket will be right here. It's just a bar that will slowly fill up. So if you're a very small nation, you get 10 administrative, 10 diplomatic, 10 military points that get dumped into that bucket every month, which is 30 points a month, and you only need 3,000 points to finish. So it's only going to take you 100 months, and then you'll just be Westernized, and it's awesome. If you're a very large nation, you might only get 1 point of each type per month, and it will take 10 times as long. So like 1,000 months, like a damn long time, basically 30 years or so. So I recommend, if you're gonna play a non-Western power, decide very early on whether you're westernizing or not, and if you are westernizing, westernize immediately, as fast as you possibly can, for two reasons. First, the smaller your nation it is, the easier it is to westernize, not only because you get to dump more points per month into the pool, but also, and probably more importantly, the fewer provinces you have, the fewer westernization revolts you're going to get, because your society is going to revolt against the concept of westernization. They're going to, there'll be uprisings that try to halt westernization and be like, we don't need guns, we have the most well-trained samurai warriors of any nation, and we're proud of our heritage, and blah blah blah. So yeah, the smaller your nation it is, the easier it'll be to fight those rebels, and the quicker westernization is going to go. So definitely westernize early if you're going to westernize. Also, the second reason is that westernization makes teching up cheaper, right? So the earlier you do it, the more techs you're going to gain with the discount, right? So if you start at 333 and westernize, then bam, all the next 29 techs of each category are going to get that 25% tech discount. Whereas if you wait until you're 20, then you're only going to get 12 techs of each type with the tech discount. So the discount doesn't count as much. So yeah, that's under there. And then we finally made it up to ideas. We actually also discussed these things on the top, right? Your manpower pool and your stability and your prestige and your legitimacy. And we still haven't really talked about power projection. And your treasury. So, ideas. Each nation has kind of a national identity that they start with. So the Ottomans' national identity is plus 5% discipline. And remember, discipline is counted 4 times. So that's really, really big deal. 5% discipline is a lot. That just means that their troops are really good at fighting. All of their troops just like get a blanket bonus to both reducing incoming casualties and increasing outgoing casualties, and reducing the morale damage that you sustain when you take casualties, and increasing the morale damage you do when you deal casualties. So those are the 4 ways that discipline is counted. And also minus 33% core creation cost. That means that the Ottomans can expand rapidly and cheaply. It costs them less administrative power to add a new province by just taking it and administratively adding it. So most nations are going to want to use a lot of vassalization in order to get half of their province coming in with administrative points and half of them coming in with diplo points, or maybe even all of them coming in with diplo points, because administrative points unlock idea groups and give you stability and reduce inflation, and those are 3 extremely important things. So taking administrative points that you could have used for those extremely important things and instead using them to expand your empire seems silly, when the alternative is that you could expand your empire with diplo points, and diplo points are only used for increasing trade income, getting better ships, reducing war exhaustion, and taking unjustified demands in war, and changing cultures. And all of those things are okay. None of them are even close to as good as the administrative things. So many people expand only exclusively with vassalization and diplomatic points. So it's important that the Ottomans get a huge bonus, or a huge discount on spending administrative points to expand, because it'll make them one of the primary nations who expands in that way. Most nations won't expand that way, but the Ottomans will. That means these stack, like the core creation cost discount can be combined with other things, like right here, core creation cost discount of 25%, so 33% and 25% together, you're going to get really cheap territory. So administrative ideas can be a great early idea group for the Ottomans. And then after your national identity, which is just 2 things, each nation gets 2 things that are their national identity. I wonder if you can check the national identity of other nations. I mean, I know you can in the wiki, but I guess within the client, there's no way to check the national. Oh, maybe there is. Yeah, there totally is. Okay, so Lithuania gets 15% manpower recovery speed and 4% reduced revolt risk of heretics, and Hungary gets cavalry combat 20%. It's kind of a big deal. And 5% recovery of army morale speed. And QQ, one of my potential allies, is no cost for reinforcing and minus 5 years of nationalism when adding new provinces to their territory. It's less likely that those provinces will revolt. Timurids have the same thing, because these guys are both hordes and they both get the generic horde ideas, I guess. So each nation has a national identity. And some of the national identities worth paying attention to are the Ottomans, cheaper coring. I mean, that means they're going to expand. You need to know that if you're bordering next to them, they'll be more likely to want to attack you. France and Austria both get +1 diplomatic relationship right off the bat, I think. And Burgundy gets mercenary maintenance -25%, and they're sitting on one of the richest trade nodes in the game. So Burgundy, with a normal nation, if you beat them up and beat them up and beat them up, eventually this pool of manpower empties out, and now they can't make more soldiers, and they have to hire mercenaries, and they're like, boo, I don't want to hire mercenaries, they're so expensive, this is terrible. But Burgundy gets super cheap mercenaries, so from day one they're going to be hiring mercenaries. They're never going to run out of manpower, and they won't be regretful even if they do run out of manpower, because mercenaries are so much cheaper for them, so that's pretty sweet. Anyway, different nations have different national identities, and you can read them all on the wiki if you want to. Sorry for coughing. I know that it totally sucks when somebody is talking to a mic and then they cough right into the mic. That sucks. I'm sorry. I ruined your life. Aside from national identities, the first two, you also get unlocked national identities as you progress over time. The Ottomans' unlockable national identity stuff is all crap, so I'm not going to go over it. But some nations have really powerful second or third or fourth unlockable ideas. Like France, for example, gets a huge bonus to morale called Elan. I don't know what that means. But it makes them really hard to fight against once they've unlocked that. So you unlock this after you get 3 ideas. You unlock the first one, and then 3 more ideas you unlock the second one, and 3 more ideas you unlock the third one. So if you're fighting against France, you want to kill them before they've unlocked their 6th idea, because that's when they get this huge morale bonus. So, you know, it's a little bit of advanced nonsense that you probably don't want to worry about when you're first learning the game, but it is important to know that over time, nations will continue to diverge in identity from other nations just based on unlocking national ideas. Then you get to the generic ideas. These are the ideas everyone gets to choose from. You have theoretically 8 idea groups that you will unlock by the end of the game. But remember, you might, if this is your first game of EU4 ever, you might be thinking, okay, so I'm going to play until 1820, and as my 7th idea group, I will take blah, 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 and that will help me in the late game because it's a really good late game tech, and don't plan that far ahead. In your first maybe 5 games of EU4, you're probably never going to make it past 1600. Not because you'll die, but because you'll feel like you've learned so much that you might as well start fresh with a new nation. So, yeah. Also, by default, you're going to be playing on normal difficulty with no AI bonuses, and you'll probably be playing a large nation like the Ottomans. And it'll be fun, you'll lose some territory, gain some territory, but at some point, because the difficulty settings are not extreme and you're playing one of the easiest nations to play, you're going to expand so much that the game becomes a lot harder to play when you have a really large nation, and there's no one really left to challenge you. So it gets easier and more tedious and harder to play, so you're probably going to want to start fresh as a smaller nation and be like, okay, I did well with the Ottomans and I learned everything about the game. Now I want to play Bosnia. You know, it's super poor, super crappy, tiny nation, surrounded by, you know, more powerful nations that want to gobble it up, and that'll add a huge amount of challenge to the game. So don't plan super far ahead. You should expect to unlock at least 3 idea groups before the game kind of is over, but don't plan for your 4th idea group, or your 5th, or your 6th, or your 8th especially. The progression of how to play the game that I would recommend, start with, you know, someone big like France or Castile or the Ottomans or England, or maybe even Poland to form the Commonwealth, but that'd be a little bit harder. And then play someone more challenging but still kind of big, like Austria. Austria is super fun. I would definitely recommend you play Austria because they're a completely different playstyle than every other nation. Austria has a vassal swarm, meaning you have tons of AI nations that fight your wars for you, so you don't actually have to use your own troops at all. You can literally play the entire game without ever making a single soldier and do just fine as Austria, and that's not true of any other nation. So it's a really interesting playthrough. And then after you've played through as Austria, play an even smaller nation in an even easier area. So anyone in Italy, right? If you played as Urbino or the Pope or Milan or even the single province of Mantua or Savoy, any one of these guys is going to be much poorer initially and have much fewer troops and troops that aren't as good as fighting as Austria. But because they're surrounded by other people who are also small, they can gobble up their small neighbors really easily and really quickly until they form the nation of Italy, and then they become a huge powerhouse. And it's a really fun playthrough to let you play a small nation without it being insanely hard. Then after that, you might want to play a very small nation that is actually insanely hard. Someone like Ulm. Ulm is very popular. There's actually a Reddit called Ulm Gone Wild, where people post screenshots of how big their Ulm nation has gotten to be. Another example of a small and challenging nation would be Frankfurt, right here, or Hesse, or Brunswick, or East Frisia, or forming the Netherlands with Friesland or Gelre or Utrecht can all be really challenging, fun games. A very popular one is Byzantium, because they start out with a ton of cores but no territory and no money. You can take Byzantium, a very small nation surrounded by the Ottomans, and like they have huge initial challenges, and you can form the entire, you know, Roman Empire. You can surround the entire Mediterranean Sea with them. So starting small, growing big. Once you've done all that, change the difficulty. Most people play their entire, you know, EU4 careers on normal difficulty Ironman, and they're like, I'm playing Ironman, it's so Ironman. And I do recommend that for your first 5 or 6 games. Stick with normal difficulty. It's what everyone plays, and it'd be hard to compare yourself to other people if you never play on the same difficulty as them. But at some point, once you've taken a teeny tiny nation and taken a teeny tiny nation through becoming a huge powerhouse, playing other teeny tiny nations might not be super appealing to you, and just keep, you know, it'd be kind of like doing the same thing over and over. So up the difficulty level, up the give the AI bonuses so that they get like double the army size and stuff like that. And you can still play in Iron Man mode with hard difficulty and AI bonuses set. So you can still unlock achievements, it's still exactly the same kind of thing, it's just the AI is much stronger. And then go back and play a large nation with the hard difficulty and the AI bonuses set. I really recommend Burgundy. I love their national idea that makes mercenaries super cheap, because it means you can literally constantly be at war, always fighting. And since you don't have a manpower pool to worry about, you're never going to run out of manpower. Whereas other nations are like, I'm going to fight really hard for 5 years, then I'm going to sleep for 10 years and replenish my pool of manpower, and then I'll fight for 5 years and sleep for 10 years. Burgundy will fight and then 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 fight forever and ever and ever. And that's insanely fun. But it's hard to enjoy playing Burgundy on normal difficulty, because they're so much of a powerhouse just starting out. They got like the richest trade node in the game, and you know, all sorts of cores on England and France, and everyone wants to be their ally and stuff. But if you set the difficulty level really hard, the large nations can become fun again. So give all that a try, and we will discuss some of the generic ideas a little bit more in a sec. It's been 40 minutes. I think I should stop here and pick up in the next video. So thanks for joining me, dude. We'll be back.